so that we can fix it. The reason that we have Maximus here is because if there are issues or challenges that you're dealing with when it comes to collection, right? Yes, okay, I want to make sure I'm right on it. Collection of child support and
child support, the child support office actually does several things. We not only collect child support, but we establish paternity. Once paternity is established, we will proceed with setting support that's both financial and medical support. And then, of course, we will enforce once we have a child support order, we will enforce it. One of the things that we are trying to communicate with our community and throughout the state of Tennessee is the fact that child support is not necessarily the enemy. We have to work within the guidelines of the laws, as Mr. Parkinson stated. We work within the laws. We're going to do what we need to do to establish paternity, set support, and collect support. But we are also an agency that's committed to working with the families. And if there are barriers, we have various agencies that we work with, and we will work with both the custodial parents and the non-custodial parents in trying to remove those barriers or assisting in removing those barriers.
And let me say this too, no one up here is the enemy, okay? They're here because we want to find solutions. Am I right? Everybody nod your head if you're here for that. If you're here to scrap, we took the boxing ring down last night, so, but no one up here is the enemy. They are all invited here by myself, and we have them here for a reason, to cover specific areas of questions that you all may have, okay? And I'm gonna let y'all, finish taking the microphone down the line to talk about your purpose, okay? So, let's start here. You already covered right here.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I hate hearing my own voice. Does anyone else hate that? I hate it. But what the Department of Human Services has tried to embrace within the past few years, and it's hard because child support has historically been your enemy, like Mr. Parkinson said, but we have tried to take more of a family-centered approach. We know that people have struggles. We know that they have barriers. So what we have tried to do these past, I want to say 3-4 years, we've really tried to embrace that family-centered approach. And really it comes down from the federal government as well. They wanted to, instead of being the hammer, be the handshake. So that's what we're trying to do. We know that there's struggles within the system. Part of it's our laws, part of it's our policy. We can't help that. We have to follow that. But as Mr. Parkinson and Mr. Fitzhugh said, that's what they can help us do. See where we need the change and then help move that change forward. So I'm excited to be here, hear what you have to say. I know Angela and April are as well, because we want to have a good program. It gives back to the community, and that's what we're here for.
Yes, Marcus Eccles with HuntsvilleBlack.com. And what I want to focus is, and what I do is talk about, all of them have a job to do. Like you said, it's the law. What we need is people like you. You should be the ones lobbying the legislators to get it changed because you work with it. And I wish they would talk more about Title D funding. A lot of people don't want to talk about Title D funding because it brings in big bucks for the child support agencies. When you get into Title 4D funding, everybody's talking about Social Security. Well, Title 4D funding that's going toward these child support agencies, that's what's breaking Social Security. And all the laws they're passing, like she just told the truth. Some of them are unfair, and some of them are built in that way. These laws and rules are actually paying people's 401ks. We know that. And in some cases, Title 4D funding gives these agencies $5 to every dollar that they collect. There's matching funding that they won't tell you about. And the best way to out this system is to become clean about the huge profits that are being made. Now, there's a lot of things wrong with child support, like she just mentioned. Some of them are right, they're laws. But just let me tell you some of the laws that are violated. The right to equal protection is violated. Due process is violated. The prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment and arbitrary fines and penalties. They do that all the time. And many of the things they do don't help the family, doesn't help the child. Because the child support system is an adversarial system. You don't go in there with them trying to bring these two families, these two warring parties together. When you get two couples that's no longer together and they got some animosity between each other, and then you throw child support in there whose main goal is Title IV funding, you got a lot of problems. Number one, I just want to say, criminalizing parents cannot be good for the children. I don't care what organization it is. It drives a wedge between the parent and the child, and it's not only unfair to the parent, but it may severely damage the self-esteem of the child, but no one wants to look at that. These laws don't do anything but clog the court system. That's all they do. But you get big money, that's part of that Title IV funding. The reason why they get 5 to 1, in some cases higher, is because they have to maintain the case. They get extra money for warrants. There's money out there for warrants. And warrant issue is a big part of the money being brought in. And these laws will result in ever-increasing numbers of parents withdrawing from participation in their children's lives. They drive people into the ground. And they will result in parents being sent to prison simply for experiencing financial hardships and falling behind in support payments. Now, debtor's prison has been outlawed since the 1800s, but child support can lock you up if you don't have no money. It is the only law on the books that can lock you up in violation of debtor's prison. We got rid of debtor's prison, but child support kept it. And the last thing I want to say about that is all the system does is create divisiveness in our society, and they further reduce and erase our civil liberties.
To piggyback off of what Mark had said, I just want to say I talk to a lot of parents across the nation with child support cases, and the one thing that I want to mention is that I find that the child support agencies in local communities do not follow the guidelines that they are supposed to follow when enforcing child support. Mainly the suspension of licenses, issuing warrants. There's criteria that's supposed to be followed that I personally have worked on cases that the agencies just totally ignored. And once I worked on them, those and fixed the cases, those licenses were reinstated, warrants lifted, things like that. So I fight for reform. My organization, we fight for reform, and we help educate the parents with their rights and to make sure that they are protected when dealing with this system. So that's what we do at the Child Support Hustle.
I'm gonna hog the mic for 1 second. I just want to ask a question of the workers up here. How is suspending a person's license going to help that family and help that child? That's how they're supposed to get to work, how they're supposed to do anything. It's more like punishment. Also, not just suspending the license. Some organizations, they will, if a person owes $1, they'll put their picture up on the internet, I guess in an act to try to shame them into compliance.
I would like to say this, that always there's two different sides to what's going on. And we're talking about families, we're talking about the children, the mothers, and the fathers. One of the things that Ms. Wicks stated, and I want to make sure we understand and that this is being heard. Historically, how child support has been ran and operated, the state of Tennessee is taking an active step toward changing that. Change doesn't happen overnight. You hear certain things. We hear what's the fairness in taking or restricting someone's license, but then we hear the other side of the custodial parent. Why are you not enforcing? That's why we thought, or that's why the state is committed to putting more of an impact of working more on a family-centric entity. We can sit here and talk about what the current procedures and policies are, and that's not making the change. The change is going to have to be made with First of all, it's going to have to start within the families. It's going to have to start with the individual parents. And that's why we have partnered with companies and organizations that have a vested interest in, we have our non-custodial parents go through parenting classes. The focus has been on the fathers. This Shelby County office is currently working with Family Matters to get a parenting class for mothers as well, because relationship is key. You can't put a financial value on the relationship of a family. I can't, but by the same token, some of us, and that's a reality, oftentimes people assume that parenting is a natural thing, but simply because I gave birth to a child doesn't mean I'm prepared to be a mother to a child. And that's the same thing with a father. Simply because you created a child, that's not what makes you a father. Until we can get into the relationships of that, as you stated, our sitting here on these forums every month or every week, that's not where the change is going to happen. The change is going to be on focusing on the individuals and the relationships. If there is no relationship, there's going to be problems. And as far as your questions on, as I stated, the driver's license, what's the benefit of that? It is an enforcement action. It's a tactic that we utilize, because just like we have people saying, what is the benefit or what is the good in doing that? We also have mothers or custodial parents, because it's not always mothers. We have custodial parents pushing on the same end. We want enforcement. Another reality is there is a financial obligation to raising a child. That's a reality. You got to have a financial support to take care of a child.
There's been recent studies that the way child support is calculated is totally incorrect. Because of the Title IV funding that child support agencies get, they're going to increase it as much as they can, as often as they can, when studies show out of California that should be start off lower and stepped up as the child grows. But child support does it exactly opposite, because they're not in the business of lowering it. And another thing I want to say is suspending those licenses because the other parent wanted so. That's one of the major problems of DHR. You come in and you side with one parent over the other to do this, to appease that parent. They want it to be enforced. But taking that license, whether that parent wants to or whether DHR wants to, how is that helping the child? And this is not all about the child. You know for a fact that you can't go to child support court and you can't go in there and mention parental alienation. You can't go in there and mention visitation. They make you fill out a whole nother separate thing that you're only there for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to collect that pension, Title IV funding.
Okay, I'm going to speak first to the guidelines. Because we are currently in the process of reviewing the way that child support has been calculated. We do know that there are some high amounts that have been set, but once again it goes back to what our current Tennessee laws are and what our federal laws are. We do have a committee that we have really just kicked off to start looking at it. It's a long process. We've invited people from all over the state to come in to tell us what they're hearing in their areas about how the child support needs to be revamped. We'll also be having some public forums in the future as we get closer to finalizing those to hear the feedback. So those will be advertised. We invite everyone to come and give us what your ideas are of what the guidelines should be. As far as the license revocation, you do have to meet a certain criteria. If you're paying a certain percent of your child support, then we're not going to attempt to revoke your license. It has to be a certain criteria. And if you do get a notice that we're going to revoke your license, we'll work with you. We understand maybe you lost your job and you didn't tell us. We need to know those things. Maybe you have been working, but we didn't know that, so we couldn't garnish from your income withholding. We need to know that. So it's not just across the board we're going to revoke your license. We do have set guidelines, and that's through the legislative process as well.
Also, I want to touch a little bit in regards to the driver license revocation process. I can't speak for another state's process because everyone is different, but I do know that for Shelby County, the reason why they use the driver license revocation is an attempt to get payments on a non-paying case. If there's a case and we are not getting payments, it's in delinquent status. You have to think about that the custodial parent isn't currently getting the financial support that they need to support their child. So in such cases, you would get a revocation notice. It does not mean that we're going to suspend your license. It's just a notification letting them know that you need to contact our office so that we can get a payment on your case. You put a payment towards your case, you're back in compliance, we're not going to touch your license. Even if you're unemployed, you're looking to work, our office have programs that we can allow our non-custodial parents to enter into, where we will help them look for employment while keeping their license. And a lot of this comes from miscommunication. So what we do as far as the outreach team, we're devoted to going into the community, letting them know what programs we have available, how they can keep their license, how to stay in compliance with their cases, and this is a part of us building that relationship. So it is happening in Shelby County.
First of all, I just can't get over no matter what it is, stopping a person, if he's not in compliance, if he's behind, taking his license gonna set him up to get a ticket trying to go to work. That is no way that taking a license is gonna help that child. It forces somebody to try to come up with some money. That's all it does. And I just want to say it's a few questions that we really do need to ask DHR workers and that organization. What we need is more unity, and for DHR to start trying to be a bridge instead of a wedge. Because DHR reinstating families and bringing them back together is not your stated goal. That's not the goal. You talk about program after program. That's what's breaking the country. You can't solve all of this with a program. What families need is for DHR to take a step back, because this is about greed. It's about grab more. Let me tell you this. Why is selling the non-custodial parent into financial slavery the best thing for the child? How does income disparity between parents affect family structure, mental disorders? In case no one knew, some mental health professionals came together from 200 of them, top in the country. They published an article in the APA, the American Psychological Association, and shared parenting is the best thing for parents. But you don't hear that from DHR. DHR only talks about pay this, pay that, obligation this, obligation that. This is not about the child. It's about the Title 4D funding. Okay, now the last question I want to ask, people should be asking DHR. If you got a problem with DHR, this is what you can do. DHR and child support is a federally funded program under the Social Security Act. Okay, so you're getting funds for all the cases you create, for the higher amounts that you set. I just wish DHR, you come clean. I want somebody from DHR to tell the audience what exactly is Title 4D funding and how that affects families. We got so much income disparities between families, but we don't need the courts and DHR trying to pick winners and losers. A child does better when they got the love from two loving parents, not one parent pitted against the other, not somebody coming in with the state backing them financially and legally, because that's exactly what happened. Okay, and there's a difference between being a deadbeat and being dead broke. But DHR don't want to hear dead broke. The only thing they want to do is try to shame a person into the corner with these deadbeats, with taking your license. They want to beat you down where you cannot fight back. What our children need and what the experts, this is not me talking, the experts say what we need less of DHR and more shared parenting. Child support does not stop when it comes to 50-50 shared parenting. It takes on a whole new meaning when a child got the love of two loving parents and they're not warring with each other. Just like she said before, they don't want to suspend that license, but that custodial parent wants something done. So the something you do to appease that is to take the license, which does nothing for the child. Okay, I hope they tell y'all something about Title IV defunding and how they get their money and how it's matched. They receiving like $5 to every dollar. Say, here's an example. If me and Kenya had a child and she went and got child support, Title IV defunding is going to come to these guys. If they set my child support at $300 a month, whether I pay her or not, these guys are going to receive about $1,500. I just wish they would explain what Title IV defunding is and that hunger to get it, create more cases, create more programs, break the system instead of bringing families together.
Title 4D was established back in 1975, and it was initially established as a way to reimburse what was then called welfare. Now we call it temporary assistance to needy families or Families First. So yes, it was established in 1975 to do that. Our assistance roles, because whenever you do apply for TANF, Families First, that is an automatic referral to the child support program as a way to help reimburse the TANF Families First payment that you receive, but also to get the child support into the custodial parent and the child so that they can get off that Families First. We want you to be self-sufficient. And you keep saying $5, $5. There was a 2016 federal data from the Office of Child Support Enforcement for 2016. For every $5.33 that the states, and this is nationwide, collected, we only spent $1 of that on the child support program. It's a federal program. I'm not going to argue with you about I can only say what the Office of Child Support Enforcement just posted, and you can all go look at it. It shows statewide the public assistance rolls. It shows how many are non-TANF, non-public assistance cases. We do get a 66% federal match from the government to run the child support program. The state picks up the other 34% to run that.
Sure. Sorry about that, that was me.
If you're not, okay. If you're not receiving public assistance, then you don't ever have to apply for services with the child support office. You don't have to have us in your business. We would love to not have to be in your business because it is a struggle. We're dealing with people's children and people's money, the two things that get you the most passionate, the most upset, the most, I don't know what other terms, protective. So we would love to reduce our caseload. We would love it. We would love for the families to work together. That's our goal. It may have not been 20 years ago, but that's the role that we want to play now. We want to help you get back together. We want to help you build those relationships. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen for everyone. I was divorced when my children were 1 and 3. It was a constant struggle to get the child support. It happens to all of us. Some pay it because they want their child to benefit from that. But in those instances where you have parties who don't want to come together to form that bond, to create that family, that's what we're here to do, to make sure that that child is taken care of.
Actually, I think this week's covered a lot of it, and just also some of the statements that you're saying, some of the statements that you use, it's not, remember what I said in the beginning, the state, the agencies that are working child support, we are more family-centric now. The way that things have historically been done is not necessarily the way things are being done now. And just to reiterate, as Ms. Wex said, if you are not receiving state assistance, every penny collected, you receive as your child. You receive that money. That money's not going anywhere but to the parent that is receiving, or the custodial parent of that child. A lot of the things, we need to go out of what was past and move forward towards working on what's going to benefit us in the future. We're in agreement. We feel like families, we should work together from the relational end of it, the relational aspect. We're not disagreeing with that. We are in agreement with that. Some of the things that the concerns you have, those are conversations that you should be having with your representatives, your councilmen, the people that can actually make a difference. Some of the other concerns, those are court. If it's anything that's a court order, we simply enforce the policies and the orders and the laws. For that to change, or if you want it to become more relational, we're going to have to work together. And the forum shouldn't be about pointing fingers. It should be about what can we do to improve it.
Okay, I'm just going to step in real quick for a second. My name is Cedric Williams. I work for State Representative Antonio Parkinson. We're going to get a couple questions from the audience, if you all don't mind. The first one is, someone says, my son gets my grandson during the summer. He was under the impression that during this time his child support ceases. Is that true? Question from the audience. They say, my son gets my grandson during the summer. He was under the impression that during this time, his child support ceases. Is that true?
Use the mic.
It depends on the order. If the order says that during summer visitation that the child support is suspended, then it would be suspended. But if it doesn't say that, then no, it continues to accrue.
And also to answer that, if they know that the parenting time has changed, if the father is visiting and taking a more active part in their child's life, that means that father is providing more financial support for that child outside of child support, they need to look into getting that order modified. And that is a service that we offer in our office as well.
Okay, I want to share a story with everybody about the system. Like I said, everybody here has great ideas and stuff like that, and we all need to come together, and I just want us to do what the experts say we do. Child support workers and agencies are not child psychologists. There's a big difference, a real big difference, and they just published in the American Psychological Association journal that the damage that it's doing, the way the system set up now. And I commend y'all for changing it, and Representative for bringing this issue out. There's no back and forth here. We need to have this conversation before the public. Like I'm glad you explained to some point the Title IV defunding, because it's a mess. That's why Social Security is going broke. That's the real reason. But let me share this short story with you. What happened to Bobby Sherrill. He was captured in Kuwait in 1990, and he was held for 5 months as a prisoner. When he got out, he was arrested for child support. The Bradley Amendment states that once child support obligation has been established, it cannot be retroactively reduced or forgiven by a judge. So a person is buried in debt for the rest of their life. You cannot get out of it. If you come into a situation and you get $5,000 behind in child support and you can't pay it, it doesn't matter if you're paying your monthly payment or not. Every 30 days, that lump sum that you owe is being multiplied by a percentage. That put people into a hamster wheel that they can never escape.
Okay, we have another question from the audience.
Wondering, I have custody of my 2-year-old grandson.
Ma'am, hold the mic up a little closer and speak a little louder, because the speakers are pointing that way, not at us.
I have custody of my grandson. He's 2 years old. I got him from the hospital. Both of the parents abandoned him. I can't receive assistance for him because I work. So I want to know, what is the obligation of the parents? How would I go about getting child support from him? Because they're working and they're living nice, and I'm struggling paying child care, and I don't think it's fair.
It's just as simple as, if you're not receiving any kind of DHS funding, you can apply for our services. It's just as simple as coming into the office and applying and filling out an application. And you can also, this application is online. You can actually print it out, fill it out, bring it to our office, and we're going to render our services. As far as trying to make sure the non-custodial parents, have that financial obligation. So you just have to come into our office anytime or call, and we can mail your application as well. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Yes, but I hope she does, the young lady, I hope she does understand that once you apply for that, someone will have to pay it back, either your son or daughter. They're going to help you. I'm not going to discredit that. If they get funding, they don't have to. I'm saying if she goes in, like you told her to come in and apply for it, who has to pay that back? Will you guys seek out the parents to try to get it back? Now,
yes.
What I'm saying is who pays back?
There is nothing to pay back because she's not receiving any type of assistance from the state. It's 100%. If she gets TANF, Tennessee is one of the few states, and there's very few, that passes through almost all of the child support back to the parent, even if they are receiving assistance. What's the max assistance amount? $1 or $142 a month? That's about the average. It's all based upon your unmet need that the Family Assistance Office calculates. So they take into account how much income that you're earning and how much additional funds that you need in your household, and they determine your unmet need. So based on that, chances are very high that if the non-custodial parent pays $300 per month, you're probably going to get that full $300 per month based on your need, because we know it's important to pass that money back to the parent. How are you ever going to get off assistance if you don't have that extra money coming into your home? So Tennessee is one of the highest, or one of the few states that does pass along more money to the parents. If you're not receiving assistance, or if you've never received assistance, you get 100% of the money, no questions asked. We don't keep any of that to reimburse anything.
Okay, we're going to go on to the next question.
And before we ask the next question, we're going to keep our answers up here to about a minute at the most, because we want to hear from you guys down there with your questions or your comments that you may have. And we're going to ask that you do not take the microphone from Cedric, because I need him to be able to take the microphone when you get long-winded. And keep your questions to less than a minute. No speeches, no stories, okay? All right, everybody understand the ground rules? We good? All right, thanks.
Just for benefit of those people who do not know about arrears, a lot of people are foggy about arrears. They don't understand the concept of it. So could you break it down to them?
Okay, so your question was about arrears. Are you talking about retroactive arrears, or?
Well, yeah, retroactive. I mean, when it actually starts from the time you file.
Okay, and I'm not an attorney, so don't hold me accountable if I speak a little bit out of turn here. Maybe Mr. Fitzhugh could address that.
Retroactive support is when you have two parties in court and the judge is asking whether or not the non-custodial parent has been an active member of the child's life for the months that child support was not involved. If that answer is no, the non-custodial parent has not been actively financial, then the judge can order a retroactive amount going back to the time that the parent was absent. That's retroactive support. Arrears, once the order is set, for example, if you were ordered to pay $250 a month and it started January the 1st, so January the 1st, February the 1st, March the 1st, we did not receive a payment. that $250 is going to be building up, and that's how you get arrears. That's arrears that's owed on the case. So arrears is just unpaid child support. Even if you pay half of your obligated amount within that month, it's still going to accrue the other half because you did not fully meet that obligated amount. So arrears is just child support that has been unpaid. Retroactive arrears is going back from the time you was absent out of the child's life. Does that explain your question? Okay.
Okay, we have another question.
Oh, okay. Thank you guys for being here. I actually have several questions. I get out as much as I can here. One of my main questions is, why don't we remove presumptions of parentage? So why does a mother or a father have to prove his fitness whenever two people walk into a courtroom? There should be default shared custody. Why is the money discussed first, but the parentage is discussed second? And I would like to know, how does that work, and how can we change that to go towards so-called equal rights? Because I didn't choose my gender, so I would like to know how can we change that, where we can discuss custody first and have a presumption that no one is of non-custody status. In the example of, if we have gay marriage, if we have two women that come in and they're both women, or we have two men, how do you get to choose who's the custodial parent, who's the non-custodial parent? You have to look at the facts, you have to look at both people equally, and I think that that presumption should be brought towards heterosexual couples as well.
When child support is set, they actually set it by what we call an income shares worksheet. A part of that income shares worksheet, one of the first sections asks, how many days is the child with the custodial parent? How many days is the child with the non-custodial parent? That's what's going to determine. So if you've got a non-custodial parent and they're asking how many days are you with them, that would be the time that information would be put in.
My second follow-up point is, why do we have a child support enforcement agency but we don't have a child visitation enforcement agency? Because we don't have caseworkers assigned for men. We're told that we have to go hire our own attorneys, and it could cost up to $30,000 for a very heated custody debate. And I know that under the Constitution, in civil cases, we're not entitled to representation, but there's a lot of criminal sanctions that are being held against our head.
That is, I believe you've been misinformed. We are, as the young man at the end of the table stated, we're a 4D agency. We're federally funded. We will not deny service to anyone, male or female. As far as, and unfortunately, and I hate to say this part, and that's something that we should be working at, but child support and custody, the 4D agency, the child support office, does not, we do not address custody issues without child support being a factor. Child support, the establishment of support, paternity, and enforcement, those are the things we do. Visitation, if you got an issue or concern with visitation, Shelby County does have a court, or they have an office that will address that, but that is not a specific issue that would be addressed by the child support office.
I just have one thing to add to that, and she's correct and you're correct. The Title 40 program does not allow us as the child support program to address custody issues. However, at the federal level, they are talking about that now because they do see the need to provide that service to our customers. How long that would take to trickle down? It's federal government. It could take years. But the good thing about it is they are discussing it. They are talking about it. And there is an agency here, advocacy group, and it's in the clerk's office. So there is an agency here that will help mediate those issues.
Okay. I just want to, in the interest of time, we're going to have to go ahead and go to the next question.
I received my printout of my past statement from my child support payments from my children's father that he has not been paid, but somebody in that office has been putting memos in the computer stating that he's made payments that he has not paid. want an answer. I've been coming down to that office since June. The last payment I received was $150 in June. I have a child with a traumatic brain injury and scoliosis, and I have no family, no support to help me. Meanwhile, the father makes $1,000 worth of cash money. I'm not getting anywhere coming into your office. I'm not getting any answers. It's all right here.
I would be happy to sit and look over the paper and documentation that you have with you. That is a case specific, and that is something that we would have to look at. If payments are being, the only reason you should be receiving information from our office that payments are being made or being received should be because our records indicate that payments are being made or being received. But as I stated, it's case specific, and I will be more than happy after this forum to look over the documents that you have. Okay?
Of December 2015 that were not sent to me until January, the end of January. Yeah, middle of January. But they were made in December. But the state did not send me my money.
Once a payment is receipted into the system, we have to distribute it within 48 hours. If you receive a debit card, there was a debit card transition. So if we didn't have your current address, then we had no place to send it. There's a ton of different issues that could go on with your case, but without speaking with you specifically to your case, we can't answer it on a broad basis.
Good afternoon, panel.
Wait a minute, hold on 1 second. Ma'am, make sure that Cedric, make sure that she gets your number. And April, okay.
In regards to your concerns, I just want you to know that you are being heard, but it is something that we will have to look at. We can't just give you an answer without looking into the case. So would you please see one of our administrators? She's over here at this table. There's a child support information form that you can complete, put all your information on it, and you have our guarantee that we will be contacting you to answer and go over your case with you, okay?
And let me say this too, ma'am, go ahead and do it now, if you don't mind. And they'll follow back up with you and follow back up with me also. Thank you. And if y'all, and I know they have, this is our third town hall meeting on child support. So the people up here, this is their first one, but the people up here, we hear these stories. We see the heartbreak, we see the frustration, and we're trying to solve some of the problems that we can solve in real time, if we can. Some of the problems are global problems that are happening on a recurring basis to everyone. That's where myself and Leader Fitzhugh come into play, because that's going to take a legislative change so that it fixes the things that need to be fixed globally. That's why we do it. Now, anyone in here, if you have a challenge, somewhere it's going to be met. We're going to either, if there's a fix that they need to fix individually for your case, and some of your cases, some of your challenges, you may not want to discuss outwardly, but that's why they are here. Again, I'm going to say it again. No one up here is the enemy, and no one up here is the enemy with each other. But we do have differences in how we see this thing operating that we want to see, work for everyone involved, specifically though, for the child. Specifically for the child. So, yeah, real quick.
Yes, I just want to say to the gentleman, you might not got all the answers you wanted, and this lady over here, if she doesn't get the answers she needs, like I said, child support is a federally funded program. If any DHR or any person's not doing what you think they should do, then take them to federal court. Appeal your case in federal court because they're under contract. They're not the end-all, be-all. Take them to civil court, federal court, and try it there and bring all the issues to light. If they can't answer it, or you can't get no answers out of them, take it to the federal because that's their bosses.
All right, Sid. Okay.
I've got to run, and I've enjoyed this very much, and we hear this a a lot all the time. This is a very complicated issue, as you know, because you have parentage, you have divorce, you have custody, you have child support, you have a judge, you have federal agencies, you have state agencies, you have contract agencies. This is going to be with you if you're the custodial parent or the non-custodial parent, unless you just get along tremendously, and normally you don't. So find you some source, whether it be your state representative, whether it be the DHS, whether it be a contract agency, whether it be anyone, a lawyer, hopefully, legal services if you can't afford it, because you're going to need to keep records on both sides of this. You're going to need to keep up with what you've received or what you've given, and it helps a lot. And then the lady that mentioned earlier, I'm sure there's some error there, and now she's found somebody that will help her and get it done. We found these to work out, but what I'm saying, it's a long-term deal, because you're going to have problems through error or omission or life changes or whatever. So it's really important because it's all about the child. It's seriously all about the child. And you want to do what's best for your child, whether you have custody, have shared, full, or otherwise. So that's my advice to get you somebody that can help you early on before you get way behind or way ahead or whatever your particular situation might be. Thank you all.
And look, I want to say this too, just kind of piggyback off of what Representative Fitzhugh said. If you can, keep the state out of your household. Don't invite them in. You know, and trust me, I think that in a lot of cases, they don't want to come in your household if they don't have to. But here's the thing, find a way to work it out with the other person for the sake of the child, please. Find a way. It's not going to always be glamorous. You know, there may be some bitter feelings here, and I'm a realist. You know, I heard some of you say, you know, in the cases of, you know, DNA, get a DNA test when the baby is born. You can't do that. You know, that mother will run you off with rakes and pitchforks. You know, and the child, once the child comes back and it is your child, and y'all together, and you done got a DNA test, man, you're gonna have hell to pay in that household after that. You know, so being real about this thing, find a way, even if you have to swallow some of your pride, find a way to try to work it out, if you can, with that custodial parent, or that non-custodial parent. But for those that refuse to do right, then you know, I'm out of the way of that. I'm not about to defend a father that will not support his children, plain and simple. And that's to all of the fathers. You know, you have to support your child. You need to be in that child's life because that child needs you.
Again, good afternoon, I am the grandmother of an 8-year-old. My daughter facing a situation with a non-custodial parent, in which I submitted care for like 5.5 years. She says that the child support agency says that she can only file every 30 days for a warrant for him to pay. If he puts $25, $50 down on a $17,000 bill, I don't have any understanding. Can someone express that? Or explain it to me?
Cedric, can you repeat that question? We can barely hear her.
So I believe the question is that there's an individual that can put $15 to $20 down on a $17,000 payment for a non-custodial parent.
So the non-custodial parent, he makes little small payments, you know, to...
Here's a gentleman that's driving a brand new 16150. His income is not investigated, so whatever he submits to the court or the child support agency is accepted. Yet he's allowed with a $17,000 bill to apply $50 or $75, and the warrant is lifted. And she has to constantly go back. Every, 30 days, I think she replies.
you would want to actually complete one of the forms for us to get back with you, because it is case specific, but let me explain to you as far as child support. If he's over $17,000 in arrears, that's one of those cases that we were talking about in which he would receive a revocation notice unless he had become a part of one of the programs in which we were trying to work with him to get him back on track.